Hello. So today we're going to be discussing the 11th chapter of Aristotle's Art of Rhetoric. And this chapter deals with the concept of pleasure. Aristotle defines pleasure as, strangely, a movement. So pleasure is emotion. And it's emotion that brings the soul into a normal state of being. And pain is the converse of pleasure. Anything that produces this action, anything that brings the soul into a state of normality, is therefore pleasant. And this normal state of being is also referred to as being a natural state of being. And natural implies balance of a sort. Aristotle also says that the normal state of being can also be something that is rational or irrational. The rational normal state of being is something that is induced. It's a sense of normality that is induced by the individual undergoing that experience through their own reason. So what the individual reasons to be normal, they reason themselves into a desire, and the expectation of that desire either causes them pain or pleasure. Similarly, habits can also change the mode of normality for an individual. As soon as a thing has become habitual, in Aristotle's words, it is virtually natural. It's natural in the sense that a habitual act is often there. It's there with a rhythm. It's there in an expected manner. But it's not natural in the sense that it's not always there. Aristotle defines the natural as something that is happening always, at all times, with a fixed regularity. Habitual events happen often, so they're akin to the natural. And because of that, when we exercise our habits, we will tend to feel pleasure in doing so. Aristotle says that the natural is the liberal. It's something that is done out of our own agency, something we choose to do or are compelled to do from within and not forced to do from without. So all that is done in compulsion is bitter, and you can think to yourself, even things that we enjoy typically, whether they be food or books or sport or work, doing those things under compulsion turns those things into a bitter act. It's something that is unpleasant. And that also applies to things like toil. Aristotle says that hard work, hard labour, is initially something that is unpleasant, but when we become accustomed to it, we can start to take pleasure in doing that. Relaxation, on the other hand, and rest and sleep are in the class of pleasant things which don't involve compulsion. So much for pleasure. Pleasure can also be something that is connected to the senses, and it goes back to desire. You can have a pleasure associated with the different organs of the body. There are pleasant classes of smells, pleasant sights. There are sexual desires and appetites. The satisfaction of imbalances or pent-up anticipations or desires in each of these organs will generate that movement of the soul, which is pleasant in Aristotle's view. Aristotle also taxonomizes pleasure along the axis of time. And he has a quite apt, eloquent quote here. It follows that anything pleasant is either present and perceived, past and remembered, or future and expected. since we perceive present pleasures, remember past ones, and expect future ones. So, not only is the pleasure generated as it happens, it's the mere memory of a pleasure or the expectation of a pleasure that can generate pleasure in the present point of time. And, akin to that, it brings joy to people to remember the relief of a great pain in the past. So when they may have been rescued from a perilous situation, when they may have endured a great injustice, and the fact that they no longer do, that juxtaposition can create pleasure in the person imagining that situation. Going on to other emotions or other states of being, pleasure can also come to people that are angry. And Aristotle's reason why anger is a pleasant emotion is interesting. He says that people that become angry are in their imagination. And when someone is deeply angered, they're taken by the imagination of taking revenge on the object of their anger. And the imagination of revenge itself is something that is immensely pleasant. And Homer said, indeed, sweeter it is by far than the honeycomb dripping with sweetness, speaking of wrath. And just the mere imagination of taking revenge can fill someone with great pleasure. And indeed there's a very, very famous Tupac lyric on that very topic, which I won't quote here. Similarly, it's in remembering kind of a past pleasant experience, or the memory of a loved one, for example, that can be pleasant for a person but also be bittersweet. And when people are grieving, in that process of grief, there may be a hint of pleasure in remembering that person and what we loved about them, what we enjoyed about them, coinciding with the fact of their loss. Aristotle talks about pleasure in the context of victory. Victory is pleasant because victory is rare. Things that are rare and hard to come by, or take a lot of time and pain and toil to come by, that also bring with them benefits and honour, are seen as pleasant, and victory is one of those things. He speaks of victory in the context of games, debating, sport and warfare. Victory in that context is pleasant to seek. Pleasure can also come from honour. So it's more pleasurable to be honoured and to be revered by people with whom you think are good judges of your character. It's better to be honoured and revered by our neighbours because they know us better, judges, countrymen, important people. A large number of people is better to be honoured by them than it is to be by a small number of people, by strangers, by children, by idiots, by lowly people, and so forth. So, to be admired is a pleasant thing in Aristotle's view. Similarly, flattery is pleasant because people in Aristotle's view are fond of themselves, and flatterers will make themselves aligned with the person that they're flattering and remind people of the virtues of themselves, even if it's not true. Aristotle also says that change is pleasant. Habitual things are can become boring if we do them repetitively. It's good to have some change. And it's also pleasant to give and to receive. It's pleasant to receive because it's to get what you desire. It's pleasant to give because it implies having owned something, but also implies superiority, apparently, in Aristotle's view. Connected to the concept of remembering an injustice and taking pleasure in having escaped that injustice, Aristotle also says that dramatic turns of fortune are also pleasant. Finally, people find pleasant what they spend most of their time doing on a daily basis, according to Aristotle, particularly, or specifically rather, doing what they think they can do best. People take pleasure in pursuing what they believe to be their talents. And the quote here is, "To that he bends himself, to that each day allots most time, wherein he is indeed the best part of himself." So what people have spent their 80,000 hours on, where they've developed their expertise, they will find that activity to be pleasant. So those are the ideas that Aristotle has about pleasure. And of course, the aim here is to use those ideas to evoke the sense of pleasure or displeasure in the audience for the particular purpose of the speech. The next chapter, 12, is on the motivations for wrongdoing, and we'll consider that in the next video. Thank you.